Every fucking alien in the galaxy knew humans were pathetic weakling scum, the weakest species in the universe, ripe for conquest and abuse. But now the Zorgan slavers would learn their fucking mistake after picking the wrong species to fuck with. The dim lights of the seedy space station bar barely illuminated the scarred face of Janus, a grizzled Kabali veteran, as he slammed back a glowing shot of liquor. Across the grimy table, his old war buddy Zartok eyed him curiously, sipping a fluorescent blue cocktail. "You heard what happened when the Zorgons invaded Earth?" Janus asked, his voice a guttural rasp. "They expected to enslave those soft pink monkeys in a week." Zartok shook his head. "All I know is the Zorgons fucked up. Lost a ton of ships and troops, got their scaly asses kicked somehow. Didn't think humans had it in them." Janus poured another shot, the glowing liquor sloshing over his clawed fingers. "That's just it. Humans are a bunch of squishy weaklings. Galactic Council ranked 'em lowest of the low. Hell, they can't even breathe Kobali air without a fucking helmet." "So what happened? How'd they beat the Zorgons?" Zartok leaned in, his eyes narrowing. A wicked grin split Janus's face. "The Zorgons thought they knew what humans could do, thought they'd be easy pickings. But humans had a secret weapon, something nobody saw coming, not even the arrogant Galactic Council." Zartok slid his glass aside, suddenly stone-cold sober. Every spacer had heard the rumors, the frantic whispers of Zorgan survivors raving about an unstoppable force on Earth. A human weapon that sliced through the Zorgan forces like a fusion blade through flesh. "You're talking about Kyle Holmes," Zartok said quietly. "The human that ripped apart the Zorgan hordes all by himself. That's who stopped the invasion." Janus nodded grimly, his eyes haunted by memories of blood and fire. "Kyle Holmes is the only reason humans still exist, and the Zorgons ain't. 'Cause when the Zorgons came, looking to cull the human herd, Holmes showed 'em what the lowest species is really capable of." Zartok was silent for a long moment, picturing the carnage. A lone human facing down an entire Zorgan armada, hell-bent on crushing his species into cosmic dust. By all accounts, it should have been suicide. But Holmes had done the impossible. He'd unleashed hell, showed the galaxy that humans were done being stepped on, that they wouldn't go quietly. So what is he? Some kind of human super soldier? A mutant? A fucking wizard or some shit? Zartok finally asked. Janus shook his head, reaching for the bottle again. "Nah, that's the thing. Kyle Holmes is just a man, a normal-ass human pushed too far, with nothing left to lose, and that's what the Zorgans should have feared most. 'Cause when humans get desperate, when their backs are against the wall and it's fight or watch their species burn..." He poured 2 shots, sliding one to Zartok. The Kobali vet's eyes gleamed with something like respect, or maybe fear. "So that's when humans get real fucking dangerous." Zartok raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "The turning point, what do you mean?" Janus took a swig of his drink, savoring the burn as it slid down his throat. "See, Kyle's exploits didn't just defeat the Zorgons tactically. They did something far more important. They gave humanity hope. They showed every man, woman, and child on Earth that the invaders could be beaten." Zartok nodded slowly, beginning to understand. So Kyle became a symbol, a rallying point for the human resistance. "Exactly," Janus confirmed. "His name became a battle cry, a beacon of defiance against the Zorgon oppressors. Everywhere the invaders went, they faced not just human soldiers, but a united front of everyday people fighting tooth and nail for their freedom." Zartok let out a low whistle. "Damn. I've never heard of an entire species rising up like that. Usually once the military falls, the civilians just roll over and accept their fate." Janus shook his head. "Not humans, they're a stubborn bunch, fiercely independent, and when they saw one of their own standing tall against the Zorgon horde, it ignited a fire in their bellies. Suddenly, every farmer was a guerrilla fighter, every factory worker a saboteur, every schoolteacher a spy for the resistance." "Incredible," Zartok murmured. "So how did it end? How did humanity finally drive the Zorgons back?" Janus leaned back in his chair, a faraway look in his eyes. "It was a long, bloody fight. Kyle led the charge, rallying the human forces and striking at the Zorgons where they least expected it. But it was the ordinary people, the unsung heroes, who truly turned the tide. Zartok cocked his head, curious. How so? They hit the Zorgons on every front, Janus explained. Sabotaging supply lines, smuggling intel to the resistance, even infiltrating the invaders' ranks and sowing chaos from within. The Zorgons never stood a chance against a species that wouldn't bow down, that fought with every fiber of their being for their right to exist. Zartok drained his glass, shaking his head in amazement. And to think we all underestimated them, wrote them off as weak, primitive creatures fit only for subjugation. Janus nodded grimly. That was the Zorgons' fatal mistake. They thought they could break humanity's spirit, make them submit. But all they did was awaken a sleeping giant, a species that would rather die on its feet than live on its knees. Kyle Holmes, Zartok mused. I have a feeling that's a name the galaxy won't soon forget. Janus chuckled darkly. Oh, you can count on that, because if there's one thing this war taught the universe, it's this: never, ever fuck with humanity. Zartok sits up straight in his chair, eyes sparkling with curiosity. Not in the way anyone expected. What do you mean? How did they use the weapon? Janus pours himself another glowing shot, taking his sweet time. He's enjoying the rapt attention from his war buddy. Kyle and his team, they realized this Zorgon weapon was too dangerous for anyone to have. Too much power. Could wipe out entire cities in seconds. So what did they do with it? They leaked the weapon's schematics to every rebel cell, every resistance group on the planet, gave them instructions on how to build their own. Zartok blinks in surprise. They gave the plans away just like that. Janus nods, a sly grin spreading across his face. Yep, and suddenly the Zorgons weren't just fighting Kyle and his ghosts. They were fighting 100 mini-armies, each one armed with the very weapon they created. Poetic justice, Zartok murmurs appreciatively. Bet the Zorgons didn't see that coming. No, they sure didn't, Janus agrees. Suddenly their supply lines were getting hit left and right. Weapons factories, communication hubs, all gone in the blink of an eye. The humans had turned the tables, and the Zorgons were on the defensive. Zartok leans back, processing the incredible turn of events. I have to hand it to them. That's a bold move, arming your entire species with advanced alien tech. Must have taken a lot of trust. Janus shrugs. Desperate times. Kyle knew humanity needed every edge it could get, and he believed in his people, believed they would use the weapon responsibly. And did they? Janus pauses, considering the question. For the most part, yeah, there were a few close calls, a few hot-headed rebels who almost took things too far. But Kyle and his team kept them in check, made sure the fight stayed focused on the Zorgons. Zartok shakes his head, marveling at the sheer audacity of it all. Still, that's a hell of a gamble, arming untrained civilians with weapons of mass destruction. Wasn't just civilians, Janus corrects. The ghosts spread the plans to military remnants too, what was left of Earth's armies, gave them a fighting chance against the Zorgon occupation. And let me guess, Zartok says, a knowing glint in his eye. With the Zorgons on the back foot and humanity armed to the teeth, that's when the real pushback began? Janus nods, pride swelling in his voice. The Battle of New York was just the beginning. With the Zorgons reeling, Kyle and the Resistance launched a coordinated global offensive, hit 'em on every front, in every city, drove the bastards back, inch by bloody inch. Zartok leans forward, his brow furrowed. The true reason. What are you talking about, Janus? I thought the Zorgons invaded to conquer and enslave humanity, like they've done to so many other species. Janus shakes his head, a wry smile on his scarred face. That's what we all thought at first, but Kyle and his team, they dug deeper. They interrogated the captured Zorgon leaders, hacked into their encrypted data files, and what they found, it changed everything. Don't keep me in suspense, old friend. What did they discover? Janus takes a sip of his drink, the glowing liquor casting an eerie light on his features. The Zorgons weren't invading Earth for conquest or slaves. They were running from something something even worse than them. Zartok's eyes widen in disbelief. Running the Zorgons from what? A plague, Janus says grimly. A virulent, fast-spreading disease that was wiping out their species. They needed a cure, and they needed it fast. Hansi thought they could find it on Earth, Zartok asks, puzzled. Janus nods. The Zorgons had been watching humanity for a long time, studying our biology, our resilience. They believed that somewhere in our genetic code lay the key to their salvation. Zartok sits back, stunned by the revelation. So the invasion, the war, it was all just a desperate attempt to find a cure. Exactly, Janus confirms. The Zorgons were willing to do anything, even slaughter an entire species to save themselves. But Kyle and the humans, they saw an opportunity. An opportunity? What do you mean? Janus leans in, his voice low and intense. The humans offered the Zorgons a deal. In exchange for a ceasefire and the withdrawal of all Zorgon forces from Earth, humanity would help them find a cure for the plague. Zartok's jaw drops. They what? After everything the Zorgons did, all the lives they took, the humans still offered to help them? Janus nods, a note of admiration in his voice. That's humanity for you. They saw a chance to end the war, to save countless lives on both sides, and they took it, even if it meant aiding their greatest enemy. Zartok shakes his head in amazement. I've never heard of such a thing. Most species would have let the Zorgons rot, or even used the plague as a weapon against them. But not the humans, Janus says, pride evident in his tone. They're different. They have this thing called compassion, this belief that every life is valuable, even the lives of those who've wronged them. Zartok falls silent, contemplating the incredible turn of events. So what happened next? Did the humans find a cure for the Zorgons? Janus leans back, a cryptic smile on his lips. Oh, they found something, all right, but it wasn't what anyone expected, least of all the Zorgons. Zartok stares at Janus, his face a mask of shock. What, the Zorgons were dying? A plague was wiping out their species? Janus nods gravely. Yeah, they kept it quiet, didn't want the rest of the galaxy to know how desperate they were. But they needed a cure. And fast. And they thought they could find it in human DNA. Zartok shakes his head in disbelief. Because of our genetic diversity. Exactly. Janus drums his clawed fingers on the table. Humans have a crazy amount of variation. The Zorgons figured if anyone had the key to beating the plague, it was them. Zartok leans back, processing the revelation. So the whole invasion, all those lives lost, it was just a big DNA harvesting operation. Pretty much, Janus sighs. Once Kyle and his team found out, they knew they had to stop it. Couldn't let the Zorgons get what they wanted. What did they do? Zartok asks, dreading the answer. Janus looks away, his expression grim. They destroyed it, all of it. Every sample, every bit of research the Zorgons had gathered, wiped it out so they could never finish their cure. Zartok's eyes widen in horror. They doomed an entire species, let them die out. I know. Janus's voice is heavy with the weight of it. It was an impossible choice, but they did it to protect humanity, to make sure the Zorgons would leave and never come back. Silence hangs between them, the magnitude of the decision sinking in. Zartok finally speaks, his voice quiet. I can't imagine having to make that call, to have that on your conscience. It haunted Kyle and his team for the rest of their lives, Janus says. They were heroes, but they paid a hell of a price for it. Zartok stares into his empty glass. I guess that's the thing about humans. They're capable of the best and the worst the galaxy has to offer, compassion and ruthlessness in equal measure. Janus stands, the scrape of his chair loud in the sudden quiet. In the end, they did what they had to do to survive, and that's why no one should ever underestimate them, no matter what the Galactic Council says. He walks away, leaving Zartok alone with his thoughts. The Kobali vet turns the story over in his mind, grappling with the shades of grey that define the human spirit, the lengths they'll go to protect their own, even if it means sacrificing their souls in the process. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.